Today, I am so excited to show you how to make my 3D pumpkin. Now, to get the files you're going to need to make this, you're going to need to go to my free resource library, which you can get on my website, and you can sign up and get access to this project as well as many other projects totally free. I will also try to include a link directly to the Design Space project. So that this here is the Design Space project. If you are using a Cricut machine, you can jump ahead a few steps and jump directly to just accessing this project, sizing it as you need it, and going straight to cutting. But if that link doesn't work for some reason, or if you're not using a Cricut machine, you'll have the SVG file as well. And I'm going to show you today how to use that SVG file, and then we'll walk through exactly how to assemble the project. The other thing I'll mention is I've actually got two files, two different designs. One is for making a smaller pumpkin, and the other is for making a larger one. Now, let's assume that you've downloaded the file off of my resource library, and if you don't know how to do that, head over to my blog post, and all the instructions will be right there. So let's assume you've got the SVG file. It's a zip file, so you're going to need to unzip it and identify the SVG. Then you're going to go into Design Space, you're going to click New Project, and then we're going to go over here and we're going to click Upload. Now from here, you can see I've got a few variations of this. This is where I was testing different versions. And as you can see, I've got two different ones right here. They look a little bit different. That's the two versions I talked about. So I'll walk you through these. So let's go back to assuming you're uploading your SVG file. You're going to click Upload Image and then Browse. And we're going to browse your computer for that extracted file. As you can see here, these are a lot of the different things I've got in my resource library. And we're going over to pumpkins. So this will be in a different place on your computer. This is, again, like I said, the zip file that you'll need to unzip. And the way to do that usually is you click on the file, you right click, and you do extract all. Your computer may be a little bit different, but if you're working on a PC, this is likely how it works. Now, once you extract it, you're going to see three files that look just like this. And these are the two different versions of the SVG file. We're going to start with the small and medium SVG, and then we've also got the extra large SVG. So I'm going to start with the small and medium SVG. We're going to double click that. And as you can see, we've got all of our elements right here. We go straight to upload. And now the SVG, the project, is going to be in your recent uploads. You're just going to click on the most recent one and go to add to canvas. There we go. Now, when it imports, it's going to have the entire thing is going to be grouped. And there's two things we're going to have to do. The first is we're going to have to change our cut lines over here where you see basic cut. Those are supposed to be score lines. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click on all of those. So you can click on one, then click on Control and go all the way down and select all of those that say basic cut under this plus line looking thing. Now once you've got them all clicked, we're going to go up to the top over here where it says Operations, and we're going to click on that drop down and go to Score. All right, now the next thing we need to do here is we need to ungroup our pieces. We're going to right click, go to Ungroup. All right, and now we want to select the plus sign and all the little scores. And so there's a few different ways we can do that. We can click over here and just select each of these pieces. We can also click over here and that will select the plus sign and all of our new score lines. And we're going to right click and then do attach. All right, now the reason we're doing that is if we don't do that, all those little score lines are going to be treated as a separate item on a different map. We want them to be scored on this plus sign. All right, now the next thing we've got here is we need to size it. So in this case, I'm probably going to just go with this size we've got right here. But if you wanted to make it a different size, what you're going to want to do is either select everything. So to do that, you can do Control A, and then you can drag. Now, the reason you want to make sure you select all of them when you do that is because you want this little plus sign, which is going to be our stem. You want these two pieces here, which are the main part of our pumpkin, to be proportionally increased or decreased in size as well. And then you want the leaf and the little, I don't even remember what these are called, the little like spindly thing on pumpkins. You want them to all be proportional. So that's why you need to select everything when you're doing that. Also, these two pieces here, these are both parts of the pumpkin. They are not exactly the same size, and I'll show that when we actually go to assemble it, but you want them to be proportionally the same. So that's why it's important that you select that. Now what you may need to do, depending on how big you're making it, is select that and then go down here, this is the bigger of the two, and just check the size. So you want to make sure that it's not, let's say, bigger than 11 and a half. All right, so we've got our pumpkin, we've got the score lines attached here, we've sized it, now we are ready to make it. But there's one last thing that you want to look at, and that is the color. So the way we've got it right now, if I click on Make It, you'll see because they are two different colors, they're going to be on two different sheets. Now they could fit on the same sheet depending on the size you're doing it. So if you wanted to save some paper and not have to do as many pieces, and you wanted them to be exactly the same size, you can click on each one. So click on one, then click Control and click on Shift, and then click on the other one. Or similarly, you can do that over here on the side, and then you can change the color to be the same thing, and then they'll go on the same sheet. The other thing you can do is after you click Make It, you can actually go to the second one, and over here you see the top three dots. You can click on that, click Move Object, and you can click on the other mat that's got the other piece of it and move them together. And then you're just going to have to adjust to make them fit. And note when you're doing this, you actually can kind of turn them a little bit. So depending on the sizes that you're working with, you may need to turn them to make them fit on the sheet together. But that is an option for you if you want them to be the same color and if you want to, save yourself from having to cut multiple times or use different sheets. I do like having them different colors because it will add some dimension to the pumpkin that you're creating. So I do like the two color look, which is why I left it this way, and I would definitely recommend going with that. All right, so this is the first one. This is what you would do. Now, if you're working with the other version, so let's select everything and let's delete that real quick. We're going to go and we're going to upload the other version, the bigger one. We're doing the same thing we did before. You're going to select the extra large version, and this is what it looks like here. And then click Upload, and then select that from your library, and click Add to Canvas. Now, same with the other one, but I'll show you a couple things. So with this one and with the other one, you have the option of resizing before you do the score lines. So in this case, it imports grouped. We can resize before you ungroup, so you can do that, for example, and everything will stay nice and proportional. And then if you do that, just double check the size that you end up with. So, click on one of them and see what size you've got over here. So 5.48, 468, you can certainly make that a lot bigger than that if you'd like. So you can make that up to, let's say, 11.5 inches wide. It just depends on what size pumpkin you want to make. So you can stretch this to be whatever you want. And these pieces out here, this becomes the base of your pumpkin. This is the very top of your pumpkin, and then this is the side, this curves. So that'll give you a general sense of how big your pumpkin is going to end up being. And what you see here, the reason why this is different is I've broken up those X's you saw into individual pieces. So now we can make one side of the pumpkin 11.5 inches long, let's say if we wanted, rather than the X having to be 11.5 inches wide. This lets us make the pumpkin a lot bigger. Now, of course, if you've got an 12 by 24 inch mat, you could make these 24 inches long if you wanted, for example. So it just depends on how big you want to make it. This gives you a lot more flexibility, but it is more pieces and more gluing. So it's just up to you which one you want to use and how big you want to make it. Now, just like the other one, we're going to have to select all the little score lines and change them to score. So you're going to come over here on the right-hand side. You're going to find that little square, that's our stem, the little plus sign, that's our stem. Then we're going to click on one of the basic cuts beneath it, hold down Control, and click on all the others beneath it. So you're really looking for those straight lines that say basic cuts. You don't want to do this to any of the other pieces. Now, once you've got all of those selected, we're going to go to basic cut, change it to score, and then we're going to need to attach those. And before we can do that, we're going to have to ungroup. So click on that, click ungroup, and then we're going to click next to it and pull all the way down. Now what you see happened here is we actually picked up an extra piece, right? You see here we've got this little piece here, which we don't want included. We don't want to attach that. If we attach that, it's going to cut it from the same color, the same piece of cardstock. So we're just going to need to move that out of the way and then do that again. Click next to it, drag, and then let go. So everything under that little box is selected. Then right click and do attach. And now the score lines will all be on the same sheet as this. All right, now we've got everything set up and we're going to go ahead and make it. So I'm actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm actually going to make this a lot bigger. So let's say you made all those changes, you decide you want to change the sizing again, just click Control A, select everything, right click and do group. And then we can drag it significantly more if we want. Now let's see, whoops, push it too much to the side. Let's see how big this is going to be. So our width now, well, it's showing us for the whole thing grouped. Let's select one of these pieces here. and our width is now 7.75 inches. I want it to actually be a lot bigger than that. So I'm going to click Control and then scroll down on my my mouse, or you can do Control and plus and minus, sorry, and shrink your canvas down so you can see more of it. And then we're going to click on it again. It's all selected, so it's all going to get changed proportionally. And we're going to drag it some more. And let's see roughly what size that gets us now. We're going to pick one of the pieces, and it's showing now that the width is 14. All right, it looks like I overdid that a little bit, right? Because I want it to be no more than 12. We're going to go the width of our mat. So I'm going to make it just a bit smaller. Now let's see how big this piece is. And it's still a little bit too big. Let's make that just a bit smaller. Do it again. So you just need to tinker with it a little bit. Now we're at 11.138. I'm happy with that. That means that when I cut it on a 12 by 12 mat, it will just go the width across. All right, so now I'm ready to cut this one. The cutting process, the next few steps are exactly the same for both designs. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you what it looks like on this one. We're going to click Make It, and then it's going to show us everything here. Now, if I thought I could fit, and I don't think, well, maybe I can. Let's try this. I think I can actually fit all 4 of this color on one. So I'm going to go to the next mat. I'm going to click on it, click on the 3 dots again, and do Move. And I'm going to try to move it to the other orange mat. And as you can see here, it would not fit. But here's a nice little trick. We can actually rotate them. So let's click on this one, and let's rotate it all the way around. And then move this one here, move that one there. And we're going to see if we can just barely, whoops, didn't mean to turn that one. Let's try turning this one. And let's see if we can just barely squeeze them onto the same mat. And I think we can. Oh, no, it does not look like we can, unfortunately. So you know what? Let's shrink it down just a little bit more so we can do that, because we're pretty close. All right, let's see if that's enough to make the difference. We're going to go back over here. So Cricut does try to fit as much as possible on each mat, but it's not perfect. And that's okay. We can still shift things around. So look, now we can fit them all on one. So we're good. We're not going to need this mat. Now let's check over here. That one's good. That one's fine. This one is a little bit bigger than the others, so I don't think we're going to be able to fit them on the same mat. Let's see. It takes up about 3 lines, and yeah, I don't think we'll be able to fit it. So we're just going to let this be as 2 different. And then we've got our leaf and this little line right here. Now we are good to go. All right, so we're going to click. All right, now once we're on this page, we're going to want to click on cardstock, and we're going to go from there. Now, one thing to point out with this project is, remember those score lines we made? We're going to score them on this step. So when you get here, you're going to need a scoring stylus. If you don't have a scoring stylus, this won't score it for you, but you can put a pen in that spot instead. So if you have like a Cricut pen, you can put it in that spot instead, and it'll at least draw the score line for you so you can see where you need to fold. So you don't have to have the stylus, the scoring stylus. All right, so let's get started. We're going to go ahead and start cutting them. And I'm going to switch over to showing the machine as we put the cardstock on and we load it and go from there. Oh, and make sure if you've clicked around, make sure that you click back to the first one, because whichever one you've got selected is where it's going to start cutting. So you want to make sure you don't miss any of the pieces. All right, so from here, we're going to go to the machine and we're... All right, now to make this project, you're going to need a few different things. You're going to need your scoring stylus, which is already in my machine. You're going to need some glue. One of these scrapers can be helpful to scrape up the little pieces here, these little lines that come off, but not necessary. And then you're going to need something like this. It doesn't have to be the weeding tool, but something that's got a round base. And we're going to use that to kind of scrape the pieces and curve them before we turn them into the pumpkin. Then we're going to need a standard grip mat or a light grip mat, either will do. And then you're going to need your colors. So basically you're going to want something, some color for the base of your pumpkin, the main portion of your pumpkin. I'm going to make an orange one and a gold one today. You're going to need a brown or whatever color you want for the stem. You're going to need a color for your leaf and a color for these pieces right here. When I made this one, I tried it out using the same color as the stem, but I think the leaf is better. So that's how I've got the design set up, is to do the same color as the leaf. All right, so we've got all of our pieces for the pumpkins, and we've actually got two sets of pieces here. So we've got one set for the smaller pumpkins and one set with the larger design. Now, as you can see here, with this one, we've got a square, plus sign, however you got it rotated. With these, with the larger design, you're going to want to create the same effect first. So that's going to be the first step, is to glue those into a square. Now the next thing you're going to do once you've got those glued that way is you're going to want to curve each of the pieces like this, so that when you put them together they'll actually form a nice curve. And to do that, you're going to take anything with a rounded edge and you're just going to roll it, scrape it across each piece, and that will give you the curve. You just do that all the way around for all of the pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and curve each of these pieces. I'm going to curve each of these individually and glue them so that they look just like this, and then we're going to go from there. Now the other thing, and this is somewhat obvious, but when you're curving them, your outside color is what you want to curve in that direction. So you're going to hold it this way and curve up and around, because that's going to be our pumpkin. So we're going to start doing that. I'm going to do that real quick. And I do find for these larger pieces it is easier to curve them before you glue them together. So we're going to curve each of these and then glue them so that it looks just like this. So we've made our little one, and I just showed you kind of a preview of how that all happens. And now I'm going to show you in slower motion using the bigger pumpkin pieces. Now with the bigger pieces, again, we've got these individual pieces right here rather than the 4 pieces connected into kind of what looks like an X or a plus sign. And I've curved each of them by holding something round against it and just pulling across until they get curved. And that's a really important step. Now we're going to combine them into basically the X's that we had before, but they're obviously going to be a lot bigger. All right, so I'm going to start with my first set of 4. And just like the other ones, we're going to want them to be basically a perfect X. So I usually like to start with 2 like this, and then I'll put 1 on top there, and make sure as much as possible that they're all 90-degree angles. I'm going to do that real quick. We're going to glue them together and just give them a second to dry while we then go ahead and glue the next one. And it does not need to be too perfect, so just a few drops of glue should do. And just make sure when you do this, especially if you've got paper that's double double-sided, two different colors, like the next set that I'm going to be working with, just make sure that you're doing this with the right color facing inwards. I'm going to add some wet glue here. And again, you want to make sure that you have them in the right place, just like that. And then we're going to glue the last one on top. And it does not take a whole lot of glue to hold this together. All right, now while that one dries, I'm going to put that to the side. I'm going to work with the next batch. So this one, you can see the paper is two different colors. So you can see they're two different colors. I already decided I like this color on the outside, and what that's going to do is it's going to give me a nice contrast, but you could certainly go with this one on the inside too. So if it's double-sided like this, just make sure that you've got the colors all facing the same direction, because you wouldn't want one of these, for example, to be out of sync. I know for me that would really bother me. All right, so we're going to do the same thing on this one. And we're going to glue them together. I usually like to start with just a straight line and then glue the others facing the other direction. All right, now this piece right here is actually the inner part of the pumpkin. And you know that because if you nest them, you'll see that it's smaller. So we want to close up the inner portion first. You can see right there, it's smaller. We're going to want to close this portion up first, and then we're going to glue it to the inside of this and then close this one up around it. Just move that off to the side. And then we're just going to start gluing these top circles together. Just try to overlap them as much as you can. And sometimes it helps to just hold it for a minute. Now, when I curled the paper to get this kind of initial shape, what that does is it helps you get more of a curve on the pumpkin. So this one I didn't curve too much, and you can see how it's more tall than this one is curved. So the more that you curve it before you start gluing it together, the more of a circle you're going to get. Plus it also makes it easier to stay closed as you're working through this step when it's not fighting against you and it's just naturally curling. All right, so that's our first piece, and you can see it's starting to take shape, but now we need to glue it inside of here. So when you glue it inside, what you want to make sure is that these portions here, the pieces we have, are going to fill in these gaps. So you want to make sure when we glue, we're going to glue the bottom portion of this onto here, that we've got it curved or turned in the right way. And an easy way to do that is to look at these lines that you've got here in the middle of each piece and try to line that up with the center of that little gap you've got in between. So let's add some glue here. As you can see, I like to just do a little dot on each side so we don't end up wasting any glue. And then put that in the center there. And then you just need to eyeball it and make sure that you've got it pretty centered on that circle, and just hold it for a second. All right, now we're going to start gluing each of these pieces up and around just like that. So let's add some glue on top here. And then we'll do that with the next one. We're going to do that with all four, just the same exact step. And as you can see, I like to just hold it for a second and make sure that it sets. And with this glue, don't worry too much about any glue that pushes out like you've got over here. It is going to turn clear, but with this, you're not going to see it anyway. It's about to get covered. And then put that last piece on. Now it gets a little harder to get your hands inside and really push it together to help it set for this last step. So since it's our last one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it upside down and just let that set and dry while we work on the next piece, which is our stem. All right, now remember the score lines we created. So that's, let's see if we can see them there. That's those little lines that you see right there. That helps you fold each of the pieces in the right spot. Now, if you didn't have a scoring stylus or the scoring wheel, you probably used a pen, and you can use that to help gauge where to fold them as well. But it does not need to be too perfect. All right, and then we've got the little folds on the inside too, so just fold them on each side. And then what we're going to do, just like we did with the pumpkin, we're going to then glue each of the pieces together just like that. So let's start with just one piece here. We'll glue those pieces together. Find this part gets a little messier. As you can see, it does not need to be perfect. All right, and then just like I did with the other parts, I just like to hold it for a second to help it set. All right, now while that dries, what we're going to do is we're going to curl this piece. And we're going to let it loose and then just kind of pull it down. So what you want to do is you want to get a bit of a spiral. Something just like that. All right, now we're going to grab our pumpkin again, and we're going to glue first the leaf. So we're going to do the leaf, and you can do this however you want, but I'm going to glue the leaf, and then our little spiral. I tend to like to have the tighter part out, and then we're going to glue the stem on top of it just like that. So let's start with the leaf. I suggest adding the glue to this part of the leaf first, and then having it just a little bit off center. And then, like I said, you want the curliest part of this to be on the bottom. So I'm going to add just a little bit of glue here, and then add it just like that. And then we're going to add some glue to the bottom. So we have the part that we folded together right here. This is the part we're going to add the glue to. So if you wanted to flip it around, that should be fine too. And then I like to glue this on top of this little piece right here. And then just hold it for a second to help it set. And there you've got your pumpkin.